I'd like to call to order the November 13th meeting of the Evanston Preservation Commission. First of all, in the absence of our chair and vice chair, we need a motion to appoint the secretary as chair of the meeting. If somebody would please make the motion.
I so move.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody against. Thank you. Okay. We have a quorum of 7 commissioners for the meeting. The first order of business is, well, I'm sorry, one thing first. If anybody in the audience plans on speaking on any of the issues tonight, if you could please sign in the sign-up sheet up on the lectern.
Actually, the sign was outside, and we have a sign-up sheet outside the door.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Carlos.
That's for the applicants.
Excuse me, I'm not sure because I'm waiting for my architect. He probably
Are you presenting a project?
no, my architect will be presenting the project.
You will sign in as a presenter.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
So I was confused if we sign out.
It's for the audience. Outside is the audience. Inside is applicants.
Our first order of business is the presentation of the city project for the Streetlight Master Plan presentation. Do we need to make any kind of decision on this, or is this just a presentation?
It's a presentation, and you can make comments.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Rajiv Dahal. I'm the Senior Project Manager for City of Evanston. As you may know, we've been working on the Streetlight Master Plan over a year. We had a couple of public meetings. We had a steering committee meeting. We're here to present our findings and recommendations to you tonight. With me, I have Mike Kerr, is the Executive Vice President of Christopher Burke Engineering. They helped us in completing this project, so I'll turn it over to him for the presentation.
hi. Hello. Make sure you sign up, please.
Sorry about that. So as Rajiv said, my name is Mike Kerr. I'm with Chris Burke Engineering. We've been working with the city to work through the Streetlight Master Plan. A brief timeline of what we've been up to. We've had 5 steering committees meetings. Elliot was on the committee. In September of last year, we did light readings on existing light poles throughout the city. We issued our existing conditions report in October. Had our first public meeting in November of last year, about a year ago. Then December of last year, Union Metal, who manufactures all the light poles and luminaires in town, went out of business. So that threw us for a little loop. So we had to explore some alternate technology. Did a few additional existing conditions light level readings. Performed 2 surveys. One, we asked the Northwest Municipal Conference what other municipalities were doing with lighting. And the second one is a resident survey, asking about the current lighting conditions around town. And then we had our last public meeting a few weeks ago, which was fairly well attended and went very well. So review of the community survey, over 700 people responded. The majority of the people felt that the streets that we gave them to look at were too dark. We sent a map out with 3 major streets, 3 collector streets, 3 local roads, a lakefront path, several intersections, and then finally we asked people about their block. All of the streets we asked people to look at were on different ranges of luminance, so we gave them a full range to look at. But in every case, they basically said they were too dark. The one difference was when people rated their own block, they didn't think it was as dark as all the other streets in town. So some of the existing conditions, the City of Evanston lighting standards are less than the illumination national standards. And when I reference this City of Evanston current standards, it's from the 1979 study. The lighting levels around town that we took, hand readings, definitely generally do not meet either standard. Tree canopies impede the lighting levels. The power centers, the things that power the lights, there's 107 of them in town. The good news is they're in fairly good condition and well maintained, although they are unmetered, and smart lighting does not exist in Evanston. And the existing light is a significant source of light pollution. The existing Talmadge lights have lenses on the top that allow light to shoot straight up, which obviously isn't dark sky compliant. Some of our recommendations that came from those existing conditions is there's too many different types of lights. We need to try to standardize equipment so that when new developments come in, new projects are undertaken, that the architects and engineers know where to start. The intent of the study isn't to replace everything that exists, just to provide some standards moving forward for how we replace knockdowns and approach new projects. LED luminaires should be used going forward. Most of the existing lights in town, all of the Talmadge are induction lighting currently. We're recommending LEDs moving forward. Replica Talmadge full cutoff LED luminaires should be used that are dark sky friendly. In a couple of slides, I'll show you an example of that. The city's light installation policies and procedures are well defined and should remain pretty well thought out. The recommended spacing between trees and poles, if given the opportunity, should be 25 feet. In the ordinance, there's a 0-foot candle requirement at the lot line, and that should remain. And finally, the city should look at smart metering. So we looked at alternate technology. We looked at luminaires, temperature of the lighting, optics, and lens types. Up there on the screen, you can see to the left are 3 retrofit options for the existing Talmadges. These would all be LED fixtures that would be placed in the Talmadge luminaire as a new light source to replace the induction lighting. The problem with all of them is they shoot light out and up. So they have a significant amount of glare and uplighting and are not dark sky compliant. To the right there is a manufactured, engineered replica luminaire head. You can see it doesn't have lenses in the top. It's flipped open. And the LEDs are mounted in the top, so they actually shoot down onto the ground. And the frosted lenses, to the extent they can, direct that light to the ground and eliminate glare. So after going through some pilot projects, mounting some of these retrofits and new heads throughout town, getting feedback from the survey and observing them as staff, we recommend that the engineered solution be the one that we move forward with. The wattages would vary slightly. The color temperature on all the lights we're recommending are 3,000 or less, which is the blueness or hotness of the light. The higher the number, the whiter, bluer it is, and the lower the number, the warmer, oranger it is. The optics would be type 3 generally, which allow for that 0-foot candle at the lot line. The optics are such that it's kind of a flat line at the back of the fixture, but then it projects out to the street in the front. So that's a type 3 optic. And then the lens would be a frosted acrylic type that shoots the light to the ground. As far as lighting levels, we kind of took a combination of the existing City of Evanston standards and the illumination standards, national standards. We generally used a slightly higher than the lowest end of the City of Evanston standard and slightly lower than the higher end of the national standard to get kind of a mid-range lighting level. And we provide a range in all cases so that staff would have the ability to make the decision. Most of these won't be used that often, but at the very top there, roadways, local, the existing Evanston standard is 0.1 foot candles to 0.6. We're recommending 0.4 to 0.7. So like I said, we're raising that low level a little bit. And that's the case for about, I'd say 3/4 of the lights in town are that condition. So we developed some standard for each type of roadway light. This is the David Arm roadway lighting unit. There's about 1,600 of them in town. These are what was put up at Emerson Ridge Green Bay, except at Emerson Ridge Green Bay, those are 4,000 Kelvin, so they're a little wider than what we're recommending. They were also put up at Fountain Square. Those are 3,000, so it's the same pole that was put up at Fountain Square. Mounting height would be 25 to 30 feet with an 8-foot arm. They can accommodate banner arms, outlets, all of that stuff. And also, I don't know if you noticed at Fountain Square, you can put a luminaire off the back for PED level lighting as well. And these would generally be used for major roadways, collector roadways. There's no plans to replace any Talmadge with this type of pole. The big pole in town is the Talmadge lighting unit. There's 4,200 of these in town or thereabouts. The pole itself, as I said, Union Metal is out of business. So next year, the city will be undertaking a RFP, writing an RFP to get alternate manufacturers to develop identical Talmadge poles to meet the original design. The luminaire would be, as I discussed, it would be a full cutoff luminaire with LEDs in the top, less than 3,000 K, Type 3 optics. We picked a Sternberg fixture, but obviously any equal would be suitable. So the request for proposals that the city is developing will ask different manufacturers to meet these specifications. And these would be used on primarily local streets or in combination with roadway poles on collector or major roadways. No Talmadges will be replaced without full council approval. There's a variety of other lights. Upper left is a park pathway lighting unit. We propose moving forward with the same type of lights that currently exist, only LED. For parking lots, recommending the shoebox lighting unit, which is what is generally used in the city. And then the wall pack lighting units are used in underpasses, tunnels, around transit, et cetera. Same range of wattage and color temperature. So as far as prioritizing lighting improvements, there's no plan to replace all the lights in town. Doing so would be $60 to $80 million, depending on how you decide to move forward. Even upgrading the lights on one of those 107 power centers is upwards of a couple $100,000. Full replacement of a system with new lights is $1 million. So the budget for lighting in the city is about $150,000. So the goal would be adopt these standards, use them on new projects as we move forward, and then prioritize other locations that are high accident locations, uncontrolled crossings around schools, churches, transit facilities, or any areas identified by the police that could use some extra light. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the commissioners? Okay. Had anybody signed up to speak as to this from the audience? No, okay. Great.
I think we're only, there were two of us that were on this group, and I think you all get the impression, and it's true, that they were very, very thorough in the entire process. We really, and I was surprised how many people never went to see the mock-ups. In South, most of them, well, the ones near me were in South Evanston.
Right, on Seward.
And I even found people who lived on Seward, I had to tell them that there was a mock-up on their block. You know, like, why don't you go down to the corner, there's a light there. I'd seen it before they had. But I think people eventually got around to seeing these things, and it was very useful for a lot of people. I think they could see the differences pretty clearly. And I think the one part that's important for everybody to realize is that there's no money, and that nobody
Right.
knows when any of these are going to be implemented.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on then to old business. The first order of business is the approval of the landmark designation report for 1225 Asbury. Do we need to reopen the hearing for
No,
12?
the hearing was closed. This is just the
Okay.
approval of the report to the council.
Okay, so the report had been previously circulated, and then I think a final version posted on the website. Were there any questions from any of the commissioners on the revised report? And was anybody here in the audience to speak with respect to 1225 Asbury?
Yeah, right here.
Where's the picture? I don't know. Is this supposed to be a picture?
Bring it up.
Is he in?
Is there any part of it you want to see?
Are you talking about 1239 Asbury?
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's 1225 Asbury.
No, this isn't yours.
This is not yours, sir.
Okay. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be some
No.
We'll call you
some
later.
pictures of something.
No,
We will call you later.
Oh, okay, okay.
thank you.
It says for a different project.
All right, got it. You've been working with Valerie, but she's not here today, so I'm trying to
That's
represent
fine.
her.
We will call you
She's-
later.
All right, so in that case, I think we need a motion to approve the commission's report recommending city council approval of the landmark designation of 1225 Asbury. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the commission's report and recommend the report to the city council for approval of the landmark designation for 1225 Asbury Avenue.
Second.
Second, Robert. Any discussion? No? Everyone in favor of approving the commission's report, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay.
We need to approve now the resolution to send the report to the council. There's a resolution with the report.
Okay, and do we need a motion?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then we additionally need to approve the resolution to send the report, the approval report to the council, and the resolution was also posted in the packet. I don't know if you want to show it would help to show the resolution, or,
Yeah, it's in the packet.
okay.
You want an approval for the resolution?
Yes, do you want to make a motion so you to approve the resolution?
Move to approve the resolution and to send it for recommendation to the city council for 1225 Asbury Avenue.
Second?
Second.
Robert? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor of the resolution, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so the motion carried 6-0. The next order of old business was to be continued, 1222 Dryden Place. Do we actually have to
You had to make a motion to continue. Right.
And I assume there was nobody here to speak to that tonight? No. Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to continue 1222 Dryden Place to our December 11th meeting?
I move that we continue the application of 1222 Dryden Place to the meeting of December 11th, 2018.
And a second?
Second.
Julie, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, so the motion, 1222 Dryden will be continued to December 11th. I think at the chair's discretion, we'll move the findings with respect to 2603 Sheridan to the after the new business. I think the new business will be relatively brief, and that way will help people who wish to address more specific projects, get them out of here more promptly, and then we can take whatever time we need with respect to 2603 Sheridan. The first order of new business was 1210 Michigan Avenue, Michelle Beck applicant. If you want to come and introduce yourself, please.
Certainly, and I have signed in. So I'm Michelle Beck, one of the owners of 1210 Michigan Avenue. Should I say a few comments about why we're asking for the approval?
Did you had a chance to sign up?
I did.
Okay.
Yes. And just to clarify, so the approval is both for new construction in accordance with standards 1 through 5, 7 through 13, and 16. And then we would also have to recommend a minor zoning variation, A and C, to permit the project.
That's right. So the history is we moved into the house a year ago. It didn't have a garage. The previous owners had sought and received a permit for the location at the very back of the yard. And when we started working on that, we realized it would kill the garden, and it has a very, very long driveway. So we thought it would be intelligent to try and move it a bit forward so that we could create a larger garden, have less paved space, have more green space. But this is when we encountered that needed a variation. At first, we thought we would accept just giving up and going to the back of the garden, so we sought that permit. When we started to map it out, we discovered it took up even more space than we realized, that it would completely, the folks before us had paved a part of the garden, and we didn't realize how very little green space would be left. So we sought the variance to move it forward. We have had the neighbors have all been reached out to with the postcards. I have a letter from one of the neighbors. I think he also submitted it to the office. He'd be the most affected. He's the only one adjacent to the property. And he agreed that it would be more attractive than some of the other alternatives that we have. And so that's where it stands. So the main reason is to not have to plow a driveway that would be much, much longer than really makes sense, in order to have a better garden and frankly to improve the value of the house. It was an issue for us when we were buying the house, and we believe it would be attractive and in keeping with the historical nature of the house. So that's why we're seeking the variance. We don't expect to build in the approved location if we don't receive the approval. So we would, however, still be trying to get the fence moved forward, and we might, as is permitted and only as allowed, use a temporary structure during the winter to put the cars out of the snow. We think the garage would be prettier, but that's up to everyone else. So that's all I had to present.
Do you want to just show the pictures and the site plan to show us where the garage would be and what it would look like?
Sure. So firstly, here's the property, and the proposed location is as shown here. A little closer to the street.
Ms. Beck, there is a star on the device. You see?
Yes.
It's the pointer. There you go.
Thank you. So that's the proposed location, and the permitted location is back here. And right now, there's a fence here, and we're proposing to move it so that it's adjacent to the garage, allowing the dog much more run room back here, and also that we could build out the garden. And I think you all probably understand plans better than me, but that's, of course, the street, and this is the front-facing porch. The garage itself, we're looking for something somewhat simple, but we plan to decorate it in the same way as the house, and wanted to do a stained glass window in the little octagonal window that will be facing out toward the street. So this is the 3D rendering of how it would look. So it's set back a little bit from the front of the property and would be painted in a similar fashion. It helps to see, these are a little bit dark, but right now there's our car. So basically, as far as what's visible from the street, this is no more attractive than having a garage there that makes the cars go away. Unfortunately, these are a little dark in the projection. I think they may have come, I hope they came a little bit better in the printing, but this shows all sides of the house. This shows the back garden, and basically it would be all garage if we built back there. So those are the sides of the house. I think, yeah, this shows the existing improved position of the garage, and this would be the paving that we're basically trying to get rid of. Any other elements you think I should highlight from the submission?
I think you probably need to talk about the the zoning variation.
That's right. So the zoning variation that's being sought has to do with this location. So first, that it's in a side yard. Our neighborhood has no alley, so everyone's garages are in side yards if they exist, or if they're a corner unit, they were able to get them into the back. So if we had an alley, we would, of course, have just gone there, and then we wouldn't be even thinking about it. So the being in a side yard is one element of the variation that we've sought. And then the distance from this dimension of the house is 5 feet instead of 10 feet. So that's the other aspect of it. We have proposed we could move it a little bit more forward if that's a grave concern, if it's a fire safety issue or something of that sort. So those are the two elements of the variation that we're seeking.
Did you have any pictures of the adjacent homes with the garage in the side yard?
You know, I didn't. I kind of stuck to the required elements of the application. But so the house on this side has its garage in its side yard there. The house next to us is a modern-built house, and its garage is part of it, facing toward the front. And the house on the corner has a garage in its side yard as well. So it's really only that one block. The houses across the street, I believe, have an alleyway, so they don't have that need.
Thank you. Were there other questions from the commission? Julie?
So for me, I really do think you needed to cite the other house, and it looks like there from the photographs, or let me be specific, the house adjacent to your lot, because you're really making an argument that is against zoning, where you're like bringing it forward, it's 5 feet away from the house. I can't tell about the tree situation and what's happening with the trees, because in the existing photograph, it looks like from the front of the house, there's some large trees. Are those coming down, or what's happening right there?
So this large tree would not be coming down. The garage would be in front of it.
And by how far away from that tree?
That tree lines up, it is right in front of the fence. So let me get to that tree is right here. So it would not affect that tree. That was one of the requirements. There's no other trees along here. Yeah, it's in back of the proposed location.
Yeah.
This neighbor is the one that wrote the letter of support.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but I'm just saying, in terms of my looking at this, I would be looking at the neighborhood where the garage is, where the houses. You don't have those documents. So I also know this is a Danley garage. So I know that something about how those are built and what they look like, and even if the discussion is that it would look like the house, probably the detailing won't be the same exactly. So I'm concerned that it's only 5 feet away, and I'm just wondering, like, your view is going to be this garage. What room is in the front?
So the room in the front here is the living room. This is
Facing the garage?
No, the garage is here.
No, I know, facing the garage, though. What?
Oh, it's an office.
So
This is not a room with a window.
So anyway, I have concerns about pushing the garage up, also sort of setting a precedent, because I know that there are a lot of properties where the garages are in the back like this. And so anyway.
Okay, and I'm very new to all this, so that's probably why I didn't know to put in the neighborhood pictures. I also would be very happy to. We have a lot of flexibility in terms of the builder, the way we build the garage, the use of ornament. I wasn't sure if that'd be seen as a plus or a minus. So if doing better Victorian ornament or using a different builder made sense. That our alternative really is a no garage situation, which is also difficult from a value point of view. And it's right now kind of a long path is what's facing out to the street.
Is this as close as you can be to the side yard, or would that require another variation? Is the side yard distance to the property line?
Oh, this doesn't require variation. We're allowed to be. It's within the required amount. I don't remember if that's 5 or 10 feet. I think it's 5. So that side, there's not a variation needed. It really is that
Well, what
corner.
are you proposing over there?
What's the side yard?
Let me grab the paperwork.
It says 5 on the
Well,
summary.
she's saying 5, but I think she's saying 5 to the house, not 5 to the property line.
Correct. 5 to the house on the corner of the house where it's
See, that's where
situated.
the
This
5
plan
is marked.
is the one variation. Yeah.
But I'm asking, could it be more than the 5? That was Julie's concern, I think, was how
Yeah.
close are we to the house?
It really is that one angle where there's that 5 distance.
Not getting anything.
And it could be resolved by moving it forward. This structure here is a porch. I didn't know if that would make it better. So this is a brick structure here. This is a wood open
I
structure.
was trying to move it closer to the property line.
Oh, move it close to the property line. Oh,
I was wondering how close you can be. There's got to be a side yard requirement back there.
Right. And sorry, it's probably on this plan. So if I look at it carefully, I should be able to answer that. My recollection is 5, and that it was right at the level that would not require variance.
I think it's 5. I think once you got out of the rear yard where the garage was originally there, then you're probably having to be within 5 feet. Can we go to the elevation, wherever that is? Yeah, no, go back. Well, either that or the drawing or the rendering, the next one. I guess I know you wanted some type of ornamentation, but that octagonal window seems to not be part of any element in your existing house. And it's just one of these things that you unhappily see in, available in every lumber yard you walk into, as if, let's slap it on your house, and it suddenly magically becomes a Victorian, with or without trim. And it doesn't relate to anything that's there. I think some, conventional double-hung window, if anything, would have made more sense. I'm not sure what you're lighting up there anyway. And then you told us that it's going to be stained glass supplied by owner, as I believe what it implies. And I'm just not, I don't know how the other people feel about it, but I just don't see the need for it, let alone the appropriateness of that element at all. Julie, you're concerned about whether the siding is going to match the siding and whatever else.
I think just the fact that I think really 5 feet away, that probably rendering isn't exactly correct.
I know.
It'd be much
That rendering
closer.
looks like it's about 15.
Yeah.
It was done by it's because this juts out that it's at one corner that is 5 feet away on the diagonal. It's actually not that close to the porch.
I think it looks much further here than it probably is. That plan makes it look awfully close.
Carlos, can you comment or give me some background on how many applicants, the idea of moving garages forward and how often, is that something that,
No, I don't think it's a very common request.
okay. And I apologize if you have already commented this. You had showed us the plan where the garage was previously approved in the back of the lot and that you want to move it up. Can you just maybe reiterate and clarify why you chose to move it up as opposed to, I know you had said you wanted a fenced-in yard and that kind of stuff. Is there a reason why you couldn't build it in the back where it was previously approved?
Part of it, when they started, we actually started to stake it out in the approved location, and that's when we discovered that this plat of survey from 2007 they had built a patio here. So we misunderstood what we were looking at. The garage would come right up onto the patio, and it leaves about 2 patches of grass. So it completely ate up the garden once we understood what we were looking at there. So that's when we thought, okay, we'll seek the variance and see what happens. It's either that or no garage. So and similarly, in terms of the octagonal stained glass window, we'd seen a pretty house in Evanston, had a little stained glass window like that. Don't have to have it. I mean, really, it's for us. It's garage or no garage, and that is. So we'll do what it takes for garage if we can get it. Otherwise, dig we must.
What kind of siding is it?
It is wood siding. It's intended to match the house.
Are there any more questions for the applicant? And then maybe we could, we'll conclude the discussion. So thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess the question is whether we want to make a motion today or whether we would like to see both more documentation as to similar garages within the area and changes to the garage itself, or whether, in fact, people are not supportive of the motion, supportive of the request.
I mean, I'd be in favor of allowing this to come back for administrative review, you know, and perhaps have Carlos look at it if we feel that's necessary.
I guess I'd prefer to see, I mean, to me, I understand the functional reasons why the garage next to the house would, you know, take up less of the backyard, take up a lot less snow plowing. As somebody who has a garage in the back corner, I know what that's like. But I guess I'm concerned about approving it without actually seeing if the, I mean, having the garage up next to the house is a kind of a major visual feature that's incredibly noticeable. And I guess I'd like to see that it is consistent with other garages in the neighborhood. Since, you know, the zoning ordinance does put a burden on people who want to build garages in their side yard versus in the back.
Excuse me, could I speak to the question about garages that were moved forward?
Sure, Mary, thank you. I don't know if, I think you have to.
I haven't signed in. I'm Mary McWilliams, because I didn't know this
Sign up,
question.
Mary.
I will.
Thank you.
Several years ago, the commission did approve a garage to be moved forward. It's at the northeast corner of Church and Wesley. The garage, you can see the garage. The house to the east looks out onto that garage. I would suggest, if the question you're asking about, because this is to that point, that you go look at that particular house to see how that affects the whole setting. And that's all I had.
Thank you.
I think I'm sort of, like when I first saw the rendering, I was like, oh, this looks fine, this looks good. But then the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, oh, Danley Garage, bad, 20, but you know what I mean? Like, I think it's really tricky to put something right next to your house like that, especially a Danley Garage, which are like more or less always done kind of very mediocre, very almost like an eyesore. So I'd be even for you, I'd be really cautious about letting Danley stick a crappy garage right next to your gorgeous, small, expensive house. So beware. If you're going to do that, at least do it with somebody who's got a really good attention to detail and really knows what they're doing. I don't know if I would let Danley do it next to my, over $1 million house.
That's the realtor speaking. I don't think it's fair to dump on Danley, even if I might have dumped on Danley if I had
That's
my
fair.
druthers, because I'm not sure that's really the issue. I think there's ways to deal with it, even with these kind of builders, depending on how you write the specs. Otherwise, you'll get masonite siding and God knows 2x6s at 24 inches and whatever else. But I think the bigger issue really is the issue of what it's going to be like next to the house, regardless of who built it. I think you're really underestimating what the impact is going to be even from your house. To say it's only 5 feet from the corner, and even if you look at that site plan, you begin to get an idea of the impact, and I think that's really the issue here, and how it impacts the neighbors as well, which I think is what everybody else wants to see, where it is. Have you tried, you said you staked it out in some way in the backyard. Have you tried doing that where you're proposing it?
Yes, as part of, when we applied for the variance, we were staking it out.
So you put okay. It's still, you're just looking at it in plan, which is not the same thing as three-dimensionally. I think that makes a big difference.
Well, I think I agree with Mark. I could not make a decision today based on the documentation you have today to try to sort of, because I guess the burden's on you to show that it's like imperative that you get a, zoning variation to move it up. And so I think, so I don't know if we want to, I don't know if we want you to come back, but I do think that I would just need to see a site plan of the other homes and where the garages are. And I mean, we can look here, but it really should be part of your package and your documentation. And then am I right about this? So we would say, if we agreed and we would say, yes, we basically approve of this, and the client still has to go before zoning, right? Is that right?
Right, but we would have to recommend.
We just would make a recommendation. Doesn't mean that she would necessarily get the zoning approval.
Right.
It's
Is
a
that
minor
correct?
variation, so it goes to the zoning administrator.
Yeah.
Not through the zoning.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Okay, so I guess the question is whether the applicant would be willing to, if we continued the application, if the applicant would be willing to come back for our next meeting with contextual photos showing whether there are similar garages in close proximity, and then also potentially meeting some of the more stylistic objections as some members have voiced. Yes?
I'd be willing to do that. I'll just have to check if the date works. If not,
Okay.
it'll be another.
Okay.
We are in the winter, so it'll be a while before anything.
Okay, well, I think for our purposes, we would continue until our December 11th meeting, subject to potential further continuance. And then we need, I assume, a motion to continue.
Yes.
Okay, so we would need a motion to continue the application for 1210 Michigan Avenue till our December 11th meeting. Robert, do you want to?
Yeah. I move that we continue or move the business of 1210 Michigan Avenue to our December meeting?
11?
December 11th meeting.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Julie, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Our next order of business is 1308 Elmwood Avenue, Matthew Kerouac, applicant for construction of a one-story frame addition in accordance with applicable standards for construction 1 through 5, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, and 15. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, thank you. My name is Matthew Carrick. I'm an architect for the proposed project at 1308. I apologize, a little bit under the weather. So first I want to thank Mr. Ruiz for all of his assistance on this. This project has come in front of you at an earlier version about a year ago. Those owners did that work and then went and sold it to my new client. So it's coming back to you, but with different owners. The original project took the Italianate cottage that was built in 1879, and we updated the front porch. It was built, we believe, in the 1970s. And we updated we hope improved the front porch and then added new windows. And this project, my client, Jeff Glender, they bought the house back in September. And a young family, they would like to see if we could add on a little mudroom and screen and porch in the rear part of the property. You know, I explained to them the necessity for this process, and what we're trying to do is maintain the integrity of the project and of the house. And so what we try to do is create a light footprint for what they were trying to do with the program. So I'll go through quickly what we're doing. The addition is the existing residence is here. We have a garage that we added during the previous submittal. And then our addition is here. We have a one-story enclosed mudroom that's connected to the house, and then a one-story screened porch with stairs off to the back. Above the one-story addition is a rooftop deck that is accessed from the master bedroom. This is the original site plan, so that, and then I'll go back to where the addition is. I'm sorry, these are in backwards order, so let me rush to the front. Start. Here's our existing floor plan. The addition, you'll see, will end up in this rear part. Elmwood is over here. We have our kitchen and the garage is in the rear here. This is the second floor. The addition will have a rooftop deck here, you'll see. The program we're proposing is a small little mudroom attached to the side and the rear that's somewhat obscured from the street view with this existing bay, and then a screen and porch with our stairs off the back. And then this is the deck off that over the first floor addition that's accessible from the master bedroom. The existing front elevation is here, and then you'll see this is its impact on the front elevation, this addition here. From the north elevation, the existing here, and then our addition across the rear back. And then from the rear again, existing with our addition, we'll have screens, a glass, and then a railing across the addition at the screen porch. This is an existing open porch. This is the porch that we added, and here's our addition. Some window details. We'll use the same that we did for the previous, which is the Pella Architect Series Reserve Wood. And Carl, maybe there's pictures. Sorry. Here's the proposed with the addition looking from the street. This is from somewhat the alley. Of course, it'd be obscured from with the garage. Our addition here with the screen porch, deck above. From Dempster, see a little bit of the addition here. And then this is from the north. This is our existing elevation as it exists now, from the front, the back. This is looking from Dempster, and then from the side yard looking off of Elmwood towards the side of the north elevation. All the materials, all the details, the columns would replicate exactly what we did to the previous project. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Susie?
Have your clients had any conversations with the resident to the north?
No, they have not. Yeah, they're still. Are you still living in Chicago or back or here? Yeah, they still live in Chicago.
We're in the process of moving.
Other questions from the commissioners?
Yeah, I think I realize that in order to do that deck on the second floor, that pretty much established the line of the floor of the deck. But that also seems to have established the heights of the windows, the doors, and some of that, so that all of the new windows are much shorter and not the same proportions. And then you've got, I think, the door, there's another, you're starting to see these much shorter windows in that entire band that we see here, at least in this rendering, where your guardrail has really been established by where you wanted the floor, probably stepping down 6 inches and some very thick floor framing and all the rest, so that everything got squished down. Can you go around to the other side? I don't know if it's in your elevations. Well, yeah, wait, go back, unless that's already there. That deck already exists?
This deck exists, that's
correct.
correct.
And that door already exists?
That's correct.
Yeah, that's another one that's a different set of proportions. There seems to be all these different proportioned windows that seem to be a result of all of these individual efforts that were done separately. And I'm not sure there's much you can do. That seems to be an excessively thick band that we see above the screen porch. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. When I compare it to the bay and everywhere else.
The reason for the band, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Yeah, don't go ahead.
Is that when you do a flat roof deck, you have your deck construction and that roof pitches, and then when you build on top of that, your deck at the end has to be at a nominal thickness and then it tapers back. So you're not doubling, but you are creating a heavier band. You are correct to maintain.
Well, you've got the ceiling floor joist, then you've got the roof, then you've got.
That's correct.
You're probably putting sleepers and all the rest. So
That's
you
correct.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But it really shows here, and I think architecturally there must be a way. That's why you can't tell in this rendering.
Yeah, let me go to the line drawing.
Elevations.
Let me see if I can, because it is broken. It is split. It's not a single band, so it is. There's a layered fascia there.
But I wonder if it could have been, closer to what some of those others are, the roof fascias of that little bump out that we're seeing to the left of that.
Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or even on the other side where you have the bay.
Right. The way to do that is if we maintain the construction of the roof and not try to cover the ends of the deck. Okay. So you would maintain that, but then I would have the exposed deck sides.
I'm not sure you'd see it behind the railings anyway.
That's true. And you are correct that we did step the addition down to accommodate, but it's not that that the screens and the windows are shorter, it's just they're lower than the house.
Well, I'm looking at the windows right above that deck, and that looks really small.
These windows here?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are existing.
Okay.
Yeah, the only existing element that we changed is where we have a window here, we would be putting a door in for access to the roof deck.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we have a motion? Well, first of all, was there anybody from the audience who wished to speak as to this matter? No. Do we have a motion to approve? Would anybody like to make a motion?
are we at? 1308?
Yeah, for 1308 Elmwood.
I move that we recommend a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed project at 1308 Elmwood for the construction of a one-story frame addition at the rear of the existing single-family residence that includes a rooftop deck above the addition. The applicable standards for construction 1 through 5, 7, 8, 10, 12, 13, and 15.
Okay, a second?
Quick.
Carl seconds.
Repeat it.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Our next order of business is 1239 Asbury. Is it, Mr. Romanov?
No, I'm Sergey Abushevitz, and Valeria Romanov is my wife, and she's sick today, so she will not be here, unfortunately.
Did you have a chance to sign up?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm not very familiar with the project because she was trying to managing it. So, but that's why I will read it to keep the wording, the description, what we do, and the questions, guys, we can ask our architect. So the roof structure is deteriorated and needs to be replaced. There's a habitable space on the attic level with existing bathroom. We suggest to replace the roof structure, lift the roof 2 feet to ensure proper insulation and create more livable space in the attic level. Replace damaged exterior materials and elements with a similar to match existing. So basically, we are trying to replace the roof and at the same time lift a little bit. It's up to ensure the proper insulation.
Okay, I mean, do you want to take us through the presentation, or is that something that the architect was going to do?
Victor, would you like to present it? Okay, this is, I'm assuming.
Existing house. This is the front elevation from the Asbury. This is the back elevation. And this is the most visible part that we can see from the Dempster. But it's behind the parking lot, seeing from the Dempster. What's the next? How shall I change? So this is his existing plans. We are not changing anything in terms of going outside the existing perimeter.
Yeah.
So this is proposed elevation. All elements of existing facade remains, including the materials. At present, the building is in a very bad shape, so it needs to be repaired anyways from outside and inside. So following the wishes of the owner, we lifted the roof, enlarged the existing dormer, and all other elements of the house are left intact. The reason why the owner insisted on changing the roof line, or rather lifting it, is because the existing livable space in the attic, including the existing bathroom, is low. The structure made of 2x6 need to be replaced. The additional insulation need to be installed, and the existing space will become unlivable. So the main task that we were given is to make this livable space in the attic level. That's all. All other elements of the house remain the same and will be repaired, and materials will mimic the existing. This is the back elevation, not visible from the Asbury. So we're introducing two dormers in the back that are not visible from the front anyways. On the right, upper right corner, we see the existing back elevation of the building. The dormer is the latest addition. So we are lifting the roof and replacing this dormer with the new one. Okay, these are the proposed elevation of the building. That's probably it. So the roof itself and this structural outlooks will remain like they are now, just will be lifted 2 feet up. That's basically the essence of the project.
Okay, so basically the approvals, I mean, I assume the roof could be repaired and or replaced without commission approval. It's simply the raising of the roof that would require commission approval?
Yes, and also the dormers.
Okay, all right.
So I just have a question. Isn't the proposed north elevation, the two dormers on the back, their eave, I'm just confused by the drawing. Their eave would not align with the dormer on the front because they're smaller and the pitch is different. So I'm just wondering, like, is there something wrong with the north elevation?
Pitches are the same.
But
No,
but
they're not.
they're not,
She's right.
and one is smaller, so that wouldn't look.
Yeah.
So your north elevation, I'm just saying, is something's wrong with that.
If you look at your eaves of the double dormers, you can see they're much higher.
Here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sure, yeah. They will be higher here. Because the dormers are smaller and the roof extends lower here, right.
So and then are you proposing two different options for the rear then, a single dormer or two double dormers? Is that correct?
For the back,
Yeah.
there's one proposal with two dormers.
Okay.
And there's another proposal. Do we have another?
I'm not sure. Does the back?
Keep
That's
going.
the back.
Keep going.
Keep going. It's option 2, isn't it?
Сюда нажимай, сбоку. Сбоку.
That's the one with one dormer.
Yeah.
That one.
No, this is
No.
back to that one.
I think they go in the wrong
Good
direction.
one. It's going the wrong way.
Вот это?
I think you have to go the other way.
No, we have this proposal for two dormers in the back and enlarged dormer in the front.
No. Go back. You just
I
missed
don't know.
it.
I
There it
think
is.
there was.
This is it, option
There's an
2.
option.
This is option 2.
See, option 2.
Yeah.
That's the back. Yeah. So which one did you want?
Oh, sorry. I'm very sorry. It was just a sketch minute some time ago. Yes, there are two options that, again, we are following the wishes of the owner, either to have one main dormer, which is the same as in the front, or have two dormers. Two options, right. Yes. Oh, this is the view of the roof that shall be replaced. The view of the attic inside. Yeah, this is one option with two similar dormers from the front and from the back of the house.
Okay.
And this option is one dormer in the front and two dormers in the back.
Can you keep going to the original house? I just want to see if you have an elevation. Is that it?
This is the original
Yeah,
house.
okay.
We have
That's fine.
one small dormer in front and this ugly addition in the back. This is just the staircase. And in order to accommodate the staircase, they have to build this the structure. That
So what happens when you go to option 1 or 2, what happens to that staircase?
the staircase remains, but since we are lifting the roof, we have the opportunity to change this structure into the dormer. God, we can go back. No. So instead of, we have these two dormers instead of that structure that hides the staircase, because now the staircase can be fully under the roof because it is lifted.
Where's the plan? I don't understand how it vanished.
Can you go to do you have that third floor, the attic plan?
Yeah.
With the stair in the bathroom, I think. There.
Yeah, the bathroom, this is the proposed attic with two dormers, with the option of two dormers in the back. So this is the bathroom, which actually is an existing, which is in the place of existing bathroom. This is the open structure, loft.
I don't understand how you're doing the stairs. I hate to tell you this, but your stair, you had a landing there.
The landing
and the
is
stair was sticking out.
It is shown on the.
No,
on
you
the,
added at
see
least two
how
or
it,
three
how
risers.
it works. This is the. We have enough place to place the landing. We calculated everything. So this is the height of the landing, which allows us to have not to have the dormer directly above the stair. They are on both sides of the stair.
Hard to believe.
All right, well, we'll have to discuss the project, but I don't know if there are any other questions just for the applicants before we let them sit and have a discussion.
I just have, so how much bigger is the new dormer on the front of, I'm just concerned about the front of the house. The new dormer that you're putting on is so much bigger than the existing one. So can you tell us, compared to the existing dormer, do you know how much bigger it is?
Can
you tell us that?
Is at about 6 feet. This one is about 11 feet.
And tall? It's much taller, because this goes to the ridge of the new roof
Right.
that you're raising, and the other one was actually sitting on below the ridge, and
Right.
on the other, and the slope was different. So
Right.
that's the thing that I guess, because it's a landmark house, that's the thing that concerns me, not the rear, but the front.
Yeah.
And the roof,
I think the raising the roof is the issue
Yeah.
for me. Yeah.
and the dormer.
Yeah, I mean, Carlos has just, passed out, I don't know if you, just a statement of significance when the house was landmarked, citing that it's a simple, well-proportioned, crisply detailed 2.5-story house designed by an important architectural partnership. And they go on to describe the different stories. And the ordinance requires that every reasonable effort be made to maintain the appearance of the historic structure. And I mean, I'll defer to the architects, but the essence of the architecture seems to me in the existing architecture that second floor is kind of an arrow or a band of, very horizontal. And to me, it really substantially changes the appearance of a landmark home and takes away that horizontality in a way that I think the ordinance really provides that we shouldn't approve. I don't know if the architects particularly feel that it's an architectural matter that's, my reading is right.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's really that change in the height, that you suddenly have all of this additional siding above the windows, And I'm not sure that change, even if the windows were changed, it would probably even accent that even more than your point about being horizontal, Mark. And then the increase in size of the dormer changes everything, beyond that other issue. I'm not even sure what the end elevations will look like because they're suddenly going to be really tall. We're not really seeing that. I guess, can we see the end elevation? That would be, what is that, the street elevation or the?
Well, this Dempster, that would be
That
the
would be the
north.
Dempster, the north or the south elevation. Yeah, see, unfortunately, we're never seeing proposed next to existing. We have to keep switching back and forth. And that would have been very useful to see them side by side.
An existing house, the roof
I know. Can you go to the
actually on top
existing?
of windows.
You're going to have to go back to the existing. Sorry about that. Because I think we have to keep visualizing where it is. I guess there's that little dashed line there. Whoops, go wrong way. Yeah, it's quite
So-
a big change.
Right. So I think,
About this element.
and I think it's the amount of siding you see above the front windows, so the horizontality is gone then. Because as you raise the roof, then you lose that completely.
I understand. I understand. Again, we are following the wishes of the owner.
Would you consider revisiting it and trying to work within the constraints of the landmark designation and try to?
Oh,
do
sure. Oh, sure. And maybe, if not the front, then the back of the house might be renovated without losing the original architecture, because this is addition anyways.
I think definitely the front should try to respect the proportions of the original landmark design, and if maybe you can take a second look at it, we could possibly have you come back with a modified version.
How would that occur? I'm trying to understand.
I'm not necessarily saying like that maybe they don't raise the roof, maybe they look at how they can work the
that's-
spaces
yeah.
and keep the proportions on the front facade, and work within what the original design is.
Will you consider to be acceptable the front dormer just to make it bigger, with the existing roof to remain, to make this dormer bigger? Will it be acceptable to you? What do you think?
I think, in my opinion, it's hard on the street facade to change a landmark home.
So we are
And
not touching anything in the
To
front.
go from a 6-foot dormer to an 11-foot dormer is in my opinion, a significant difference to the proportions and the design of a landmark home. So, but I can open that to my other commissioners for that.
I think it would be problematic. That's my personal opinion without seeing what he's proposing or what he might propose. Because I think it started out with this, everything being horizontal, as a couple of people have said, with trying to basically understate that dormer originally as being a fairly small element. The minute you virtually double it in size, it becomes the major element on the roof. I think if we go to either of those proposed elevations or proposed schemes, you start to see it. If you go to, I don't know how many slides you have to go to get to your proposal, but you'll start to see what happens. I think it's pretty evident that, suddenly it became the house with the big dormer as to the house with a lot of
Is
brown
this
siding.
is this where the bathroom is, right? This front dormer is where the bathroom is?
Yes,
Is there a
existing
reason why
bathroom.
it's so important to have
The bathroom there?
the bathroom element to be for that dormer? I mean, maybe there's another way to
Well,
deal
the
with
stairs
that.
are in back, that's the
Yeah.
problem.
I mean, I think we would be more open to adjusting on the back side of the home, but the front side, the front elevation is much more important to keep the historic.
I think,
Yes.
clearly you're free to just do the repairs without modifying the facade and the height of the roof. Beyond that, I think you'd have to come back and present something. I mean, I think what you're hearing from several commissioners is in terms of if you're going to materially change the front facade and the basic architectural features, is, you know, it certainly raises issues that would have to be viewed based on, you know, an actual presentation. So, okay, I don't know if there are any what. I mean, if we should continue the hearing, or
Would you be interested in coming back with
We'll be
revisions?
interested in coming back because at least the rear elevation is something that we would like to work on. I mean,
Yeah.
this one.
Right, because
We are
that-
not losing anything in terms of historical significance, and we wish that we can even improve something in the back.
I would suggest that you didn't, because the side elevation, so you wouldn't raise the roof, but you could, you know, change where the dormers are. The other thing I would suggest, hopefully you'll come back, is that maybe you arrange the documents so that we can understand what you're doing a little better. So you show the existing next to the new, and we can understand that with the existing photography as well. Because those actually really are more representative of the project than the, you know, your 3D renderings. That's
Okay, we'll take
Thank
care
you.
of it. We'll make it more presentable next time. Thank you very much.
okay, so we'll need a motion to continue 1239 Asbury.
Did you sign? Did you sign it? The paper? Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I hope your wife feels better.
Do we have a motion to continue 1239 Asbury until our December 11th meeting?
Yes, I move that we. Oh,
Go ahead, Robert.
I move that we continue 1239 Asbury to our next meeting, December the 11th. All right.
Second?
Second.
Second. Susie seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So I think it probably would be best if we then turn to 2603 Sheridan. Do we need to actually open the hearing or not? No. Okay. Okay. So the I know those of us in the commission have seen various drafts of the proposed findings of the commission. Has the most recent draft been posted on the city's website?
No, it has not been, because it was, the most recent that we worked it out all day today.
That was a proposed version.
Yeah.
Okay. Was the
It's a
original version?
Yes.
posted?
The original one was.
Yeah. the
Okay,
original
so we'll
was.
be looking at really a substantially different version than necessarily would be apparent to the public.
So for the benefit of the audience, what we did was we have a preliminary draft or the findings that was very succinct and just addressing the couple of items that had to do with Standard 5 as far as the demolition and the whether or not the application met the standards. Then when I received comments from the commissioners, I received several comments to add more substantial information about the audience that had, spoken at the meeting, and also be more technical in terms of the standards. So I added all the applicable standards 1 through 5 with the comments from the commissioners as well. So now you have a more substantial document that we put all the comments from the audience and the presentation from the city, and also all the comments from the commissioners. Then we have the findings of fact with all the standards 1 through 5. 6 is not applicable. And then we have the final resolution, which was the motion to deny the certificate of appropriateness 10-0.
As a matter of process, I think I'd heard that we need to approve this tonight. I know there were some qualms by people in the commission as to the, receiving a third draft immediately before the meeting and not necessarily having the luxury of time to try to circulate more drafts.
We did the second draft, and then I think maybe Ellie, you want to speak what you did because you work on it.
No, God, no.
Ask for public comment?
We haven't finished the
Not at that
discussion.
point yet.
Can I just go backwards for 1 second? Can you just give everyone on the commission again the date that this document and what actually the document consists of? Is it just this document? Does it include all the letters? Like, what is the timing of when this has to be completed, and what is actually going to go to whomever? Can you just explain that
Sure.
whole thing and work backwards?
So I was told that the council would have this item next Monday on the 19th, and it was the intent to include with the report all the documents that the commission received, the minutes of the meeting, and today's minutes, and the report itself. And the city has until November 21st if they desire to submit for an appeal. We don't know what action we'll take on the 19th or what direction City Council will give to staff, but we are being asked to have this report and the minutes approved so that it can be transmitted to the City Council tomorrow.
But I just don't see how we can approve this when we just got it, and it's a document that is really important, and I know it's coming from another meeting where a lot of presenters spent a lot of time working through their arguments, and I feel like we need to give this the same respect, and so I'm at a loss at when we all haven't read this, we haven't looked at the language exactly. I absolutely appreciate, Carlos, that there were comments made, and you added a lot of language, which was great. But, I know at the nth hour, Elliot was trying to organize it, and so I just don't know. I don't know how we can just, vote on this.
But leaving aside the city council, in terms of our obligation to submit the report, is there a time deadline that would require us to do it within 30 days?
I'm not aware of any kind of time deadline for findings of fact. It's basically just a way to memorialize the reasons that were used, that were stated at the last meeting, the findings made regarding the standards and the decision of the commission.
But the city's 30-day time period or whatever will expire regardless of when we submit the report?
That's correct.
Yes.
They have the time to appeal within the 30 days, but it's not subject to the report or the minutes.
So, let me, I guess I have it on, sorry. Am I correct to say that what you're saying is we don't have to approve our findings, we don't necessarily have to approve the minutes of that meeting, but the city can still appeal our decision without having read either one of those?
Well, they have to. They have a time deadline.
I know, but that...
But they were here at the meeting. They know what the commission denied.
Yeah.
And obviously, if they want to appeal, they can do that. There's no reason.
So they can appeal our vote without actually reading a document that memorializes our vote?
There's a draft that will be, posted so they can receive the draft.
Yeah, but I think that's where I think Julie and I certainly am objecting to the draft because that draft doesn't really effectively identify all of the reasons and everything that went on at that meeting and all of the conversations, presentations, assorted documents, and everything else. It's the cliff notes of the meeting.
I believe that there is a video of the meeting. These are not these are not transcripts. These are minutes.
All right.
And I think that the text has substantial, if not everything, that both the commission and the speakers had to say that evening. It's a departure from the direction we have to have action minutes. This is 10 pages long.
Okay.
With substantial information.
So
that
has everyone on the commission read this? Just want to know.
Which version? There seems to be, and I apologize for mine, but there was a version that was sent out on Thursday.
That was the version last week, and I didn't get the feedback until probably Sunday evening. Then I prepared whatever I could on Monday
And that's the one.
and
we-
today because I got more comments. So if you get a chance to read it carefully, it's basically addressing, I believe, all the concerns that you have. Now, there's a discussion on. Unless you have a transcript, you'll be able to capture everything that every word. We don't have a transcript, but we have the video.
I guess I have a couple thoughts. I mean, one is it does seem that unless we do make our findings, that the city council is not going to be in any way bound by our findings. And so, and the city council really does have a deadline, and so it's not like, I mean, it's in the ordinance, and so they have to appeal. And so if we say we don't have time to make the findings, then the findings may bear no weight. So I think there's an advantage in terms of, I mean, if we think that the determinations based on the ordinance we made were right, then I think it would be better to make those findings today, despite the kind of chaotic nature of the process. The other thing I guess I'd observe is the findings don't require, I mean, these are just findings of compliance or noncompliance with the standards in the ordinance. And I think we can, I mean, that doesn't necessarily involve all the back and forth. I mean, there was a great deal of discussion. I mean, two things. Number one, there was a great deal of discussion about things beyond necessarily the exact things we need to make findings. Secondly, I think, I mean, my feeling was the city did not necessarily, I mean, the criteria in the ordinance are all we have to make findings on. And I don't know that the city really controverted the standards in the ordinance. I don't know that factually that this contains, I mean, I think there's plenty of, evidence per se, arguments that the standards in the ordinance weren't met. And I don't think the city really presented evidence, for example, that the house was dangerous. I mean, I don't think we even heard that. And so I think we could make findings that just go to the criteria in the ordinance and stick to those that would maybe be beneficial in terms of making sure that the commission's findings get out there rather than coming in after the appeal were already filed and maybe not being heard.
I might suggest you have a copy of what the third version is on page 9.
It might be a slightly different page if they have the corrected version. You're starting with the findings?
Yeah, on page 9 starts the
Is it
commission's.
still on page 9?
I think it was on 12. On
Commission's
It's on 12 or
discussion.
11, yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Do you have?
Interrupt, but, and speaking in the words of Judge Moran, former Alderman Moran, people used to say, let's just take 10 minutes and each of us read it, and then we'll be able to reach a decision. He would say that usually about 11:30 at night. But wouldn't that work better?
That's what we were just.
That's what
We were just trying to figure out where to start.
Just trying to figure out which document we're reading.
That's what we all have done. We all read the report.
Okay, so, yeah, I'm sorry, let us try to figure out
Okay,
what to do, and then we'll invite public comment.
Can we just, so we're going to read the most recent version 3. I know that I made copies with the markups, I guess.
And I should have just made them that way,
So,
too. I
but
made
actually,
some without.
Carlos, should we just read the one that we were sent by Carlos?
Julie, do you have any more with?
I do, but you know what, maybe we should
No,
just,
because Bob doesn't have one.
Well, I'm
But
borrowing.
can we just read, don't you think we should just read the recent one that was sent by Carlos, which is
Oh,
basically...
that's not this one.
I think it is, but this has all this
Oh.
red.
The one, it's on the screen right now.
All right, well, we should just read that.
Should we just focus on I think as Elliot was saying, should we just focus on the
think just
findings
the
section?
findings.
Right, that's,
Because the
page
rest
12?
is just basically a recap or a,
It's just-
summary
The
of.
rest is just basically like a repeat of the minutes of the meeting. It's just what people said. It's not.
We have another of these because we're short.
Yeah.
Because I didn't print them.
So do you want to go back to about page 12 where it starts with 1 findings?
right.
Have this now.
Keep going now.
Okay, no,
Page
that,
12?
yeah, okay. Right there, yeah. All right.
Well, actually, finding seems to be after the actual standards, so you actually have to go up.
And that's the findings right there.
Organization's a little.
You see what he's,
I can't have to go. Did you, yeah.
oh, I guess commission's findings, yeah. All right.
Right here, I have this email. Right?
Okay. I mean, do we want to take a few minutes to read those 2 pages? Would that help people, or?
I'm sorry, what?
I mean, should we
reading the
just
whole thing.
give everybody time to read those 2 pages?
If I can maybe help just reading the pages and you guys can comment on it? Or you want to do it individually?
Well, why don't we just go through finding by finding? It's not that long. If you
I
want to
don't
do
think
that,
so.
Carlos, go ahead.
Right. So this is the commission's findings. Commissioners received the application for certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House at 2603 Sheridan Road, and over 20 document reports with information on the physical condition of the structures, the historic and architectural significance of the mansion. In addition, on October 20, 2018, the commissioners visited the Harley Clark Mansion no more than 2 at a time between 7:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. 6 commissioners are professional architects. 1 is a realtor, 1 is an attorney, 1 is a planning and historic preservation consultant, and 2 others are professionals. Commissioners referred to the application for demolition, the documents received, and their visit to the site, and concluded the following. In regard to the preservation Preservation Ordinance 29018, Section 289, it should say 9, not 4. 9D, standards for demolition. 1, whether the property, structure, or object is of such historic, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance that its demolition will be detrimental to the public interest and contrary to the general welfare of the people of the city and the state. Finding, built in 1927 by Harley Clark, the building and coach house are designated landmarks listed in the National Register of Historic Places and located within the Northeast Evanston Historic District. The buildings are in the French eclectic style and exhibit unique architectural details and high-quality building materials such as brick and stone. Their demolition will be detrimental to the public interest and contrary to the general welfare of the people of the city and the state. Number 2, whether the property, structure, or object relates to the distinctive historic, cultural, architectural, or archaeological character of the district as a whole and should be preserved for the benefit of the people of the city and the state. Finding, the Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House are an important visual feature of the Northeast Evanston Historic District and contribute to its distinctive character. The building should be preserved for the benefit of the people of the city and the state. Number 3, whether demolition of the property, structure, or objects would be contrary to the purpose and intent of this chapter and to the objectives of the historic preservation for the applicable district. Finding, the Preservation Ordinance 29018, Section 281, statement of purpose states, the purpose of this chapter is to promote the educational, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the city by A, identifying, preserving, protecting, enhancing, and encouraging the continued utilization of the rehabilitation of such districts, sites, buildings, structure, and objects having a special historical, community, architectural, or aesthetic interest. The Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House have special community and architectural and aesthetic interest. When restored, they could become a valuable cultural asset and economic benefit to the city of Evanston. 4, whether the property, structure, or object is of such old, unusual, or distinctive design, texture, and/or material that it could not be reproduced without great difficulty and/or expense. Finding, the Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House are distinctive structures which contribute to the character of the historic district as a whole. Preservation is consistent with the purpose and intent to preserve buildings with historical and architectural value to the city. The mansion and coach house are historic structures with unusual and distinctive design and materials that could not be readily produced. Number 5, whether the property, structure, or object is of such physical condition that it represents a danger and immediate hazard condition to persons of property, and that retention, remediation, or repair are not physically possible or require great difficulty and/or expense. Finding, the city application relied on city inspections that show minor existing or potential code violations, such as plumbing, mechanical, and electrical. The lack of proper maintenance over the years did not reach a point where rehabilitation and restoration are not physically or financially possible. The city's application did not demonstrate that the Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House are a danger and an imminent hazard condition to persons or property.
Why don't maybe we should break and just see to what extent we have comments on those findings, and then move on to the conclusions.
He was reading from the third version.
Right, from the current version, yes. I know I did have comments on the conclusions on 5. I don't know if anybody had comments on the findings on 1 through 4, which are probably the...
I didn't actually modify anything on the first 4, although I in reading it now, in hindsight, not so much the first 4, but right before the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a minor point where we say the commissioners received the application of appropriateness, and then there's that portion about all 11 commissioners visited the site, and that we'd also received 20 documents. What's really not there, which is in the minutes and previously, is I think we should make the point that we had testimony from 37 people.
I think that's earlier.
No, that's earlier, but it's not in the findings. And if we're dealing with the findings as a kind of separate conclusion, then I think it's important that we also make it very clear that 37 people, I guess I will say, testified.
Yeah, it's in the public comment section. It summarizes all the testimony.
I realize, but the summary kind of implies that our decision was based on, if you read it, it implies that the decision was simply based on 20 documents, the application, and our site visit.
I agree. We can put that.
Okay.
So the commissioners refer to the application for demolition. The documents
I admit that I didn't
received,
put it in because I thought it was repetitious.
the evidence presented by the speakers, something like that. Just add the evidence presented by the speakers.
And what?
And their
Can you repeat that?
Subdivide this 37 into 2 groups.
Can you repeat the addition?
Just have commissioners refer to the application for demolition, the presentations by the speakers summarized above.
Where are you? I'm sorry.
He's putting under commission finding, Elliot, in the first.
Just in the sentence you were commenting on.
Yeah, I don't know where to put it either.
Okay, all right.
I think after you see, because we've said over 20 documents and reports, et cetera, and somewhere it should be.
Right.
I'm not sure where.
Here, he just said it. Here, let's just say it again.
Yeah.
Just, Carlos, want to read, just adding in that sentence the words.
Okay, so, and the presentation by the speakers mentioned above.
Or so, right, okay.
Where's?
All right. I think my biggest concern was on the findings for Standard 5. I mean, standards 1 through 4 all go to the fact of the mansion being, a distinctive, architecturally and historically important house, and there was no real evidence produced. There was nothing produced to the contrary. So the key item is really item 5.
Right.
I think it's really important for purposes of appeal that we stick to the findings we're supposed to make in the ordinance, and not make findings based on things that aren't in the ordinance. I think our findings will be much more free from attack if we really just stick to what we're supposed to opine on. So standard 5 really just gets down to whether the physical condition is such that it represents a danger and imminent hazard condition, are the words used. And I think there was a lot of debate about the extent of the building code violations. And I think we don't really want to open ourselves up to that debate. I think the sole thing we need to find is that there wasn't evidence presented of a danger and imminent hazard condition.
I think, and that's one of the
But what
reasons
would
I
you
struck
say?
out, just so you know, that there was in the original draft, there was the word structural, and I took
Right,
that out
I-
specifically because there wasn't even evidence presented by the city. They never used the word
Okay,
structural.
But so,
at all.
Mark, what language would you use then?
Okay. I think for the findings, they could just say the city application relied on city inspections that showed, minor existing potential are all just opinions that the city, people could argue with, just showed, evidence of building code violations such as plumbing, mechanical, and electrical. And then the next sentence, lack of proper maintenance did not reach a point. That's just not the
That was
criteria in the
that
statute.
That was, I didn't change that from whatever was in the original draft.
I think that should come out, and just the city's application did not demonstrate that the mansion and coach house are a danger and an imminent hazard conditions.
Yeah, just repeat the same language.
I would even go as far as saying the city's application did not present evidence that.
Well, that sounds good.
You're going into the second paragraph there?
I would get rid of the second sentence of the finding.
Right.
And then collapse the additional paragraph back into that one and change it to say the city's application did not present evidence.
Of danger or imminent hazard.
Yeah.
Just the same language to persons or property,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So like this, we
You know,
strike all
these,
that.
Yes.
that terminology, and I didn't bring a copy of it, but, that whole terminology about hazardous condition, et cetera, and maintenance is strict language out of a building code.
Right.
And that's one of the issues, that even those two so-called reports, I'll call them so-called reports for the moment, really weren't even identifying building code violations.
Right. So Mark, can you just read that then, or can you read that?
Yeah, and I'm now wondering about my language. What I'd written is the city's application did not present
Right.
evidence. I'm not even sure the word evidence is that good. I wonder if the city,
I would have said provided no documentation. Is that any better?
it isn't a matter of documentation, but I don't even think they really argued that it was dangerous. I didn't.
It was stated in the original, I believe in their presentation, he said
Okay.
it's dangerous, but you're absolutely right.
There was
nothing
no
to back it up.
documentation.
So maybe present evidence is perfectly good. Okay, is that okay with everybody?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then I think, Carlos, the summary is the other critical part, if
Right.
you want to
That's
read
fine.
that.
All right, so now I'm going to the section, we said before that standard 6 is not applicable or does not apply. So we move on to the summary. Number 1, demolition will be contrary to standards for demolition 1, 2, 3, and 4. The Harley Clark Mansion, Evanston Landmark listed in the National Register of Historic Places, and Coach House are distinctive structures which contribute to the character of the historic district as a whole. Preservation is consistent with the purpose and intent to preserve buildings and historical and architectural value to the city. The mansion is a historic structure with unusual and distinctive design and materials that could not be readily produced. Public comment included extensive presentations as to the historic and architectural significance of the house. Evidence to the contrary was not presented at the meeting.
Is that okay with everybody? That
Yeah.
Yes.
Carol's unsure. Okay, thanks.
Number two, it was not demonstrated that there is a current danger to persons or property, demolition standard 5. The city made its request in reliance of standard 5 that the property is of such physical condition that it represents a danger, an imminent hazard condition to persons or property. Close unquote. For the city's application, section B1, quote, for,
I don't think you have
okay.
to read it all. I
All
guess
right.
I'm just going to read.
I mean, I'm wondering if we should leave in all the material or just limit it to,
Oh, all that stuff that comes after? Yeah, I know. Because that's all of that addresses the issue of standard 5. And I'm not sure, we're basically listing everything that they presented.
yeah, I'm just thinking that if the idea is to have findings,
Right.
that we should focus on what the findings are, maybe just leave in,
I would rather have seen that stuff prior to the findings.
yeah.
Wasn't that I don't know. In one document, I thought it was in the beginning.
Yeah, I did too.
There is.
I thought it was in the, when it,
Can't we put it in this front part?
yeah, so at the beginning, it lists the violations, electrical code violations, which the city presented.
Where are you?
This is just page 2.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even, which page is that? This was page 2
Yeah,
of 15.
that's part of their presentation, so I don't know
But
that
this
we
is
have to
part of their,
read-
why do we have to, that was the application, so why do we have to, list it all again? Since
Yeah,
it's
I
part of the
think-
document?
We don't.
I think Julie's right. I think we
Right.
should move it all, except then I think we need, I mean, there were 2 points in the city's presentation that concluded that the building was, structurally sound or whatever, and maybe we should, maybe we need to add, if we're going to move this, we need to then add something here referring back to those conclusions.
Wait, that it was structurally
That what?
sound or
It was-
structurally
no.
unsound?
They had the,
Those two, I think those two
Wait,
that you're
where's-
talking about
where's
were in the reports, like
I think it was McGuire's.
the McGuire
Okay.
report
And the appraisal.
the appraisal report. Because some of this was my language that I
Right.
submitted to.
No, I think you're right.
I mean, one of the reports, buried within these 2 pages is one of the reports says the building is overall in pretty good working order.
Right.
And
That was
another
not
one
in their
says there are no
application.
major structural conditions.
That was part of the
Success.
packet for that evening.
Yeah.
but it wasn't in the application.
No.
I don't think it was in the, yeah. It'll show up just before conclusion if you keep going. I think, and I don't know about here, but if you look at what I gave you, well, there it is there too. See, there are only 2 reports. That's the first time, that's where it's mentioned.
Okay, so if you go to page 2, where it says, City Manager Bobkowitz listed the building's physical deteriorating condition, and then it lists it. Deteriorating condition, current state presents a danger. The building inspection from 2012 and 2015 identified multiple mechanical and plumbing code violations resulting in these numbers, repairs. So that was part of their argument, right? Repairs would only make the house code compliant as a single-family home. And then there's discussion of the problem with the reports themselves. These are the only 2 reports provided by the city, but maybe, I mean, do we, I guess, okay, my question is, what do we need beyond, what do we need in this?
I mean,
We don't
Summary.
need a lot, but we're trying to say that they haven't presented the case. So the question is, do we have to repeat
What they
why,
presented?
or do we just simply?
I mean, my thought would be to move, starting with per the city's application,
Right.
through the carryover paragraph on the top of the last page.
Yeah.
Back to basically what Julie was reading on page 3 before public comment. Move it all back to there. That would be step 1, is to move it to there.
So wait, you're saying that you move it to, okay, public comment, then before that?
Public comment. So the end of the city's presentation would
Yes.
say, per the city's application, and there's a whole, basically about a page here, starting with per the city's application on page 14, and then top of page 15, the carryover paragraph ending in mansion, move all of that back to right above public comment. So
I got
that's
it.
step 1.
Yeah.
Okay. And then step 2, then I think we need to
So can I just say what you said so that I
okay.
think I heard what you said? So you take everything from per the city's application, section B, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you would move that to
Before public comment.
before public comment. So it ends with, he concluded his presentation, 6, the demolition represents the lecture in the early days when no buildings were present. And then you have the start of what you're moving
Okay, so
for the
then,
city's application, and then you go all the way to, what?
well, okay, then I think we have to go back to summary, paragraph 2. It was not demonstrated there's a current danger.
Okay.
So what we have is the city made its request in reliance on standard 5
Mm-hmm.
that the property is of such physical condition that it represents a danger and imminent hazard condition to the person or property. And then I think we should add that the reports presented by the city, as summarized above, concluded that there were no major structural concerns in either the exterior or interior elements of the mansion. And then I think we could just go to the last sentence. This commission found the city did not present evidence the work needed presented a danger. Does that make
So are you
sense?
leaving in that part about the, per the city's application, section B, or is that?
It's all being moved back to the city presentation
Up in the front?
up in the
Up in
front.
the front.
How far down are you going?
To mansion.
The word mansion on the top of page 15. And then we're adding, we're kind of condensing, okay, what's summary number 2 is demonstrated there's not a current danger. We've got the city made its request in standard 5, and then we're adding a sentence, and then we're concluding with the commission found the city did not present evidence. So do we have the sentence we're adding, or do we have to do it?
I don't have it here. Do you?
Okay, all right,
So Mark, what was the one you wanted to add?
if I can remember. So
It's number 2 under summary, right?
So do you want to say the reports summarized in the city's presentation?
Where do I put that?
Okay, so after the first, after the
This one? Okay, the report.
person or property,
Okay, the
the
report.
reports summarized in the city's presentation.
Hold on.
Carlos, I'm writing it.
I think some of the stuff you've moved to the front
Okay,
may have
let's-
to be edited because it
No,
repeats
just,
what's already
let
there.
me just try this now, because concluded that there were no major structural concerns exist in either the exterior or internal elements of the mansion.
Okay, I need to just put, it's going to be recorded, so I'm going to, if you give me, is that in here too? You're reading? Okay, the report summarized in the city's presentation concluded that no major,
Structural concerns exist
hold on, structural concerns exist, okay?
in either exterior or internal elements of the mansion.
Exterior or internal
Of the
Elements.
mansion or coach, same both.
Of the mansion.
Mansion or
Right.
coach house.
Okay,
Okay, mansion or coach house.
or coach house.
Maybe say interior elements, because that's kind of a more architectural than internal.
No,
Okay. What?
I would not do that because
What, you mean
there's always
that's-
the issue about interior and exterior for the commission. The argument, if you're going to restrict yourself to
Oh, okay.
interior, you're going to be into stuff that.
Fine,
you know,
okay.
not. we normally wouldn't
Sure.
even be.
Yeah, that there are no major
How about in the
structural
exterior
concerns,
or,
in
okay.
the existing elements.
How about just no major structural concerns exist?
Just stop there.
Yeah, just stop there.
And
And
then
then the
the
last
action of the
sentence of that paragraph would be the sentence we have.
Okay.
The commission found the city did not present evidence that work needed constituted danger in imminent hazard conditions. So just-
Where was that?
Okay, so all this is being moved.
Right. And then we move to here?
Yes, and this
Okay.
is the last
Right.
sentence. of the
Okay,
paragraph.
got it.
Okay. And then for the conclusion, I think there's an extra S in conclusion here.
Oh, yeah.
There was a missing S.
Yes, it is.
Carlos.
Got
That
it.
was why I did what I did. Sorry.
And then, do you want to read the conclusion, and we can comment on that?
Sure. Conclusion. Based on the city's application for certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House, the comments received from the public, the site visit from 11 commissioners conducted on October 20, 2018, and the Commission's discussion at the special meeting on October 23, 2018, the Commission finds that the city's application did not demonstrate that Section 289D 1 through 5 standards for demolition have been met. Standard 6 does not apply. On the contrary, the Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House are a cultural architectural asset to the city of Evanston and citizens. Their current physical condition is safe to the public, and they could not be restored for the benefit of the city and citizens. Okay, I can stop.
Yeah, I think the last sentence goes well beyond, it's controversial, and it goes well beyond what we're required to find.
So
we're not required to find it safe, and we're not required to find it could be restored.
So I'll eliminate the last sentence.
Whoever put it in, I think the intent was to reiterate the point of hazardous safety, et cetera.
Right, so we should just stick to our obligations in the ordinance to say their current physical condition does not constitute a danger and imminent hazard condition, and just end it there.
The physical condition is saved in the public.
No, let's take out their current physical condition and then cross out the rest of it. It's not the standard in the ordinance.
All the way?
Just saying they're a cultural, architectural asset to the city and its citizens?
No, their current physical condition does not constitute a danger and imminent hazard condition.
Does not
As required by the ordinance.
constitute imminent
Oh, so you're saying.
hazard. What else?
Imminent hazard condition as required by the ordinance.
Okay.
Okay. Elliot, did you have a question on the sentence before, or?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Continuing, on October 23, 2018, the Commission unanimously passed a motion to deny the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of the Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House. In that standards for demolition 1 through 5 apply, and none have been met by the application. Vote 10-0, and then we have the roll call.
Would there be an opportunity to circulate this for one last look in the morning before? At what point in the day does it have to be submitted to the city council?
Well, usually by 5 p.m. tomorrow on Wednesday.
Okay. So I guess my thought would be, if anybody has any further things right now, we should go over them. But otherwise, I'm sure everybody would feel better if they could have one last look in the morning. That makes sense. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to change in the report right now?
Which portions of this are we changing, which portions aren't we? Are we just going to submit only those things that we call findings and summary, or the whole works? I think I lost you somewhere in this.
I thought we were submitting the whole thing, but we were just focusing on the things
Right.
that were the most important, but we're still submitting, like.
All of it.
All of it.
Okay.
I just want
Is that right?
Yes.
I think so.
I just want to kind of emphasize the fact that I did everything I could to include everybody's thoughts on this,
did.
and it's very hard to accurately reflect what everybody's thinking without having a transcript. So I perhaps might have shortchanged some of the comments, but I thought that I was trying to do is include what I thought was significant and appropriate for the commission to consider.
No, I appreciate that, Carlos, and you did. I think it was just that we just feel, for good or for bad, like really rushed at doing this, and I know that that's really not a great place to be, but it that we have to do this, so thank you, Mark, and we're moving along.
Mark, I have a question about that paragraph that begins, "The city's application did not demonstrate."
Where are you now?
On conclusion, second paragraph.
Okay.
I don't even have what you finally made the second sentence. The second sentence, the one that's going to be what? The current physical condition, et cetera? Okay, that one is pretty much related to, I'll call it standard 5.
Right.
It seems to me that the previous sentences don't, if we're going to use that as the summary of the 5 standards, then the previous sentence, or maybe missing sentences, don't address the other 4 as well as we're addressing 5, as if the first 4 are less critical than 5.
I just think they're not controversial, and there's been extensive, there's extensive material in the application
Except that the
about why it's...
presentation said, oh, well, this isn't a special building, and it can easily be, I'm summarizing, it can easily be replaced, et cetera, et cetera. And that was part of the city's presentation. Granted, there wasn't any documentation again, but
in defense
it's in their presentation, and we're not really addressing it when we're
I think we are, because we're not only looking at the demolition number 5 standard, we're talking about the house and, of course, our cultural, architectural assets. So that's taken care of.
But it is part of it. I don't disagree, because that's sort of 1 and 2, but there's a lot more there.
And I also,
And
we
I'm
listed
wondering whether we should just do more with those 4 standards. That's
We
all.
did go through the pages 12 and 13, our
I know.
item-by-item finding.
But some people only read conclusions.
Well, that's why we
Some
tried...
only
Okay, so can we
Some
just...
only read what's in the elevator. It's always...
Yeah, and who knows who's going to read what, but so maybe, what did you just say? Can we read this whole thing again, or, and do we have to do it, now in the meeting? The changes that we made?
No, he's going to circulate it so you
Okay.
can see it.
Okay.
I guess here is a question for you, though, going to what you just said. One thing we could do would be to take all of the presentations out, put them in the minutes. You can attach the minutes and just have the findings and conclusions.
Well, that's
and
what
so,
I was asking, whether or not we were only submitting the findings, but then we have to look at what the minutes say. God knows.
Yeah.
I think that...
Been all morning trying that one, until I found out that there was a draft of the findings.
I just don't know what, what's going to be read. I understand, like, if you were just sort of saying, this is what we're supposed to, this is what we are tasked with, and this is, this issue of it's not going to fall down, there's no dangerous or hazardous conditions, but then all this other stuff, which I think is so important to anyone reading it and making any decision, that it should be part of it, even if it's a lot of information.
Well, but all I was asking about was one paragraph, not the document. I'm just saying that all we're saying here is that they are a cultural architectural asset to the city. But, somewhere we should be reiterating that, it's distinctive, it represents certain other aspects that we've identified.
Well, then let me ask you...
We have identified it, and I
Okay.
think an awful lot of people testified to that.
Elliot, we go through criteria by criteria under finding.
Yeah.
This is merely a very last paragraph that's a 2-sentence summary of the 3 pages that come before
Right.
it. It doesn't need to repeat
I'm not
everything.
asking it to be repeated. I'm just saying that whether or not just the 2 words, cultural, architectural, are sufficient summary of 4 criteria.
Well, I mean, do you want to, do you have a proposal to add a little bit more detail?
I haven't thought about it. I thought maybe somebody else wants to add something else here. It's certainly cultural and architectural. That's in number 1. But we then talk about, and it was brought up.
Well, do you want us,
historic, and I think it was pointed out as to both
So just
Harley
say,
Clark. I'm ignoring Virginia Beatty's additional comments.
Let's see. The Harley Clark
Well,
Mansion.
you can add
Courtyards
this
are
thing to under number 2,
cultural, architectural
following.
asset.
Why, it doesn't fall into 2, or you?
No, I'm looking at number 2.
Yeah.
You said there's no number 2, and
I
we
think
can add
that's
the
No,
word.
no, there are, but I'm just saying, I'm just trying to add.
Elliot, don't you think cultural and architectural asset is good enough for the
Well, if it is,
when
it's fine.
So let's just keep
I'm
it
just
in there.
asking.
Okay, let's just leave
Rhetorical
it.
question.
Let's just leave it how it is.
Yeah, go, because
okay.
it's in there.
So,
There's
before we turn to any public comments, so I think from the commission's point of view, this will be circulated one last time for any final, I think, just tweaks. There won't really be an opportunity to change a lot, but I think we at least got the last few pages right. And if somebody wants to say, what did they find? What were their conclusions? I think we made that clear, even if, you have to look for it. So that's okay with everybody?
Yeah,
I don't think we should vote on it until we've given the public a chance to speak.
Sure, and Mr. Chairman, just to clarify that circulating it, we would anticipate if there are Scrivener issues or spelling, punctuation, things like that would change, but the material information that you've discussed here tonight would be what you're voting on.
Okay, I mean, it might be wording or something minor that doesn't change the substance.
Yes.
Okay.
So the motion should address that.
Okay, so we had, I think, a few members of the public who signed up. I'll let you decide whether your comments are still germane. If anybody would like to speak, I think we'd ask briefly. So the first speaker signed up was Jennifer Shader.
Hi there, members of the commission. Jennifer Shader, 7th Ward, 47-year citizen of Evanston. On behalf of Save Harley Clark and our newly formed 501c3 Friends of Harley Clark, I'd like to thank you all for the thoughtfulness in your consideration and denial of the certificate of appropriateness for demolition of the Harley Clark Mansion and Jens Jensen Gardens. We're grateful to Evanston Lake House and Gardens and Landmarks Illinois for their support in organizing many of the experts from which you heard last month. And we are obviously grateful to all who took the time not only to speak at Preservation Commission, but also contributed to the wealth of information that was provided to you. Lastly, we are grateful for the genuine attention and professionalism that each commissioner reflected in their comments throughout the hearing. We believe that the hearing in its entirety led to enhanced knowledge of not only the current physical status, but also the historical, architectural, and cultural significance of this property. We appreciate today's thorough update to the findings. I know you guys have been hard at work. And we appreciate that the final approved findings will represent the true feeling and conclusion of the commission. And if not already in the document, we request that you take the time to verify that each person who took the time to speak during public comment is listed individually in the findings and that their comments are accurately reflected. And as you mentioned earlier, we request that when this is submitted to City Council, it include the full documents that you received, the packets which were used, all letters, papers, and photographs received during or in lieu of public comment, and the full hearing minutes and available video recording. Given that you guys are working under the time constraint of wanting to present this to the City Council or for the City Council by tomorrow 5 p.m., and we completely appreciate that, we also request that you add to your findings the suggestion that while findings are good, they are absolutely no substitute for watching or listening to the full recording of the hearing itself. We are buoyed by your expert confirmation that this property is not appropriate for demolition, and of course by the 27,000 plus voters that agreed with you that the property should be preserved and protected. And we thank you truly for doing your due diligence and making the educated decisions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker signed up is Lori Keenan.
Do you want me to sign here as well?
No, you don't need
you
to.
already signed up.
You already signed.
Hi, my name is Lori Keenan. I live on Colfax Street in the 7th Ward. We're enormously grateful to you all for the important work you do as stewards of our built environment. The last Preservation Commission meeting I attended was the first time in 3 years that I felt like the topic of Harley Clark was given a fair shake on a level playing field. So I'm very grateful for that. Your unanimous voice and support of preservation was uplifting. However, and with great respect, and Carlos, I appreciate the difficulty in presenting or compiling the report, I think that the work you've done and the case that you've made at your meeting, at that meeting, is in no way reflected in this report. And even the amended report as it is right now. In particular, the Commission received documents, written testimony, and oral testimony from a group of 16 experts from Landmarks, Illinois, many of them affiliated with allied groups, and many of them of national renown. I don't get that from this report, that these are really noted experts in their fields. It doesn't attempt to summarize all of the evidence presented by Landmarks and the allied groups. I think that the city's presentation is very detailed in the report, but the summary of your findings is not. The evidence presented is incorporated by reference in these findings, and the Commission determined that the evidence presented was credible and supports your findings with respect to each of the standards at issue. And to Elliot's point, I think that it is important that all of those 5 standards should be addressed equally within your report, not just the 5th standard. We believe that their statements, as well as their names and their titles, at least should be part of the report. We would hope that the report would back up those findings with specific facts from documents and reference to expert testimony related to each standard. In fact, the document that you approve may become a legal document. The city manager has already said that he will appeal your decision, and the next step would be to take this beyond the city council. So I think it takes careful consideration in what you're submitting, that this will become a legal document and might be the only basis of evidence that is reported. I think it's also important to know the City Council will likely not read all of Landmark's testimony and all of their experts' testimony. What they will read is the summary report that you're presenting. So in addition to all other comments, I think the report should clearly state that the Commission found the application did not meet any of the criteria for the certificate of appropriateness. I urge you to take the time to include all of the supporting documentation and testimony, which it sounds like you will do. I reviewed what was submitted, the last report, and just looking at my own remarks from that evening, it's not accurate or comprehensive. So I would imagine if the other people who testified outside of the experts from Landmarks, if they were to review what they said, I don't think that it would also share their comments. So not just the outside experts, but your own words as well, and the impressions having just been inside the building as experts yourselves. Rob, I was so taken when you said it's breathtaking. You know, I think that some of your own testimony, and this is the kind of nerd I am, I went home and watched the tape again, but I can't guarantee that the council will do that. Save Harley Clark actually submitted, we put together just a 3-minute video of the highlights of all of your remarks, and in contrast to the city's report, and that alone is interesting too. We believe that your unanimous vote to deny the certificate of appropriateness, coupled with the 80% yes vote for preservation on the referendum last week, creates 2 important data points for our elected officials to use in making their decision about whether or not to preserve Harley Clark. It's important work that you do. We're counting on the strongest report possible to prevent this landmark from the, quote, tragic blunder of demolition, to quote new urbanist, author, and cultural critic James Kunstler, as he said about Harley Clark. Knowing that the City Council will likely never take the time to watch the tape from your meeting or dig deeper than the few facts of information of support that they'll receive in your document, I urge you to please take the time to make your report as strong as possible and as comprehensive as possible. A beloved local landmark, and 80% of the Evanston voters are depending on it. Thank you again for your time and service.
Just informationally, I'm not sure, you might have seen the initial draft. I mean, Carlos had added 5 pages of summary of the speaker's materials, which is, 5 pages is, within the limits of practicality is probably what could feasibly be done. I don't know if the last speaker signed up might have been for one of the other presentations. It's Victor.
That was,
that's what I
thought
thought.
he was
Okay.
signing up.
All right, so those were the
Can I
speakers
raise
signed
a
up.
couple of points since we were going to?
Go ahead.
Okay, and it's just something as she was speaking, and I left this in, but I'm not sure it should have been there. This is on page 3, because I think everybody needs to look at that. Page 3 of either one, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Because right after, there's a paragraph, when I began to put bullet points in, those first 3 seem to be a summary that, Carlos, you put in, but they're not a summary of individual people. And I left it in rather than delete it because I'm not sure that those belong there at all. And this is kind of a rhetorical question, but those seem to be a summary of maybe what everybody said, but not any individual, and I'm not sure it's appropriate that they be left in.
Yeah, that seems right.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
So Carlos,
and then
just
to answer,
make sure Carlos gets
Okay.
it down.
Here, it's these
Okay,
ones
sorry.
here.
Just take off the first 4 bullet points.
Because it doesn't, he's talking about as summary of these comments.
Yeah,
just
because
start with
you
Bonnie
were,
McDonald.
I think what you were doing, Carlos, originally, you were summarizing what everybody had said. And
Yeah.
And so I just didn't want to, I think, as to one of the comments, and I was trying to edit this along the way today and adding in people's bios, but in fact, I have to tell you that I looked at my notes from the meeting, and fortunately, some of the people, when they were here that night, told us who they were. And some of them, as you keep going down, I didn't have a clue as to who they were. And it gets a little thin. And I think, Julie, you pointed out when you were reading some of these this afternoon that some of these sentences are not English.
Right. So,
I didn't have time. I was trying to get it to Carlos, and I suddenly realized it was 4:45.
well, so can I ask?
And I
so-
apologize.
Yeah, but
I think these
yeah.
need to be rewritten, and
Yes.
I think the point is well taken.
Right. So I'm wondering. So can they be? I mean, some of them just need some editing and complete sentences, and then can we just put in the rest of the information about who some of these people are? I mean, there's a lot here, but there's a couple that well, Elliot, I know you added. Am I reading, your corrections are in the corrected version?
They're there.
Okay.
I don't know. They're there somewhere.
I don't know.
But it's much more that I didn't have I didn't know what some of these people were or what organization they belonged to. And I think, there was a point just made here about, their credentials, if
Well,
you
like
want to
Brad
call
White
it that.
has more credentials than
Yeah.
Brad White.
Well, I just didn't have any of them.
No, I'm not talking about you. I'm asking
I'm just
Carlos
saying,
because
do they?
you just made corrections. I'm asking Carlos if we could add, like, will you or will someone be able to go through these comments, which we think are equally as important as the findings, and just make sure they're sentences, and that some of the, there's more credentials for some of the people. Can that be added?
Physically, probably. I did make the version, draft 2 had the sentences. Actually, I went through them. They were actually sentences. Perhaps you took
added
the
a
wrong.
lot. No, you added a lot, and I left those in.
Okay. So maybe there's more to do, but.
But there's a lot of people that I wasn't clear on as to who they were.
Not everybody.
Fortunately, I'm still of the age that I heard Virginia Beatty when she used to be on WBBM talking about plants and stuff in the parkway way back when, but I'm not sure anybody else in the place knew who she was.
There's always Google. you like our assistance in the credentials?
Well, if somebody knows who, I'm not even sure I have Tony Borich's name spelled right, because I saw it.
Penny Borich, he's a general law.
No, I know who he is, but I don't know if it was spelled right. I mean, I think we have a lot of this stuff, but that's just,
We have a lot
I
of
fortunately identified Stuart Cohen as an architect. You should be happy to know, Julie.
I checked the names from the
Yeah, I didn't.
sign-up sheet, and not everyone provided their credentials.
Right.
I don't think Brad White, for instance, he didn't say.
No.
I think he wrote a letter. Look, if all of the, so let's just clarify, all of the letters are going with this, right?
They didn't all write letters.
No, but many of them did. I'm just asking my question. All of the letters that were submitted to us will be part of the submission of this, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And I'll have documents that were submitted at the meeting, and I don't know, are the same that were part of the 20 documents or so. So everything I have will be part of the.
Okay. At a certain point, if somebody doesn't want to read something, I mean, I just want to say, I think Carlos has done a really, going through this again, has done a really good job. Elliot, thank you. And I think that this is very convincing as an argument. Someone might not read it, and I don't know how you prevent that from happening with all of the letters and, so I don't know.
Okay, so I think there are two things we can do. One is Carlos will submit the version we've discussed, and then there is time tomorrow, a little tiny bit of time, if anybody wants to do corrections, if anybody wants to just complete facts like who somebody is or minor things like that, there's an opportunity to improve or any sentences that are incomplete. There's certainly an opportunity to do that. I think, secondly, the suggestion has been made that there's no necessary urgency to approve the minutes tonight, and so we could take more time to try to make sure the minutes are accurate before approving those.
That's not part of what you're submitting to the council?
No, the minutes do not have to be submitted yet.
They have to be submitted by when?
The minutes also pretty closely match what's in the report. There's just more chance to nail down some of the small details.
Well, my instructions is that the minutes should be approved at the next available meeting, this meeting. And I send the minutes before the report that was, the second version and so on. I think the part that I noticed is that I was typing really fast, so some of the sentences or they're not there correctly, so I can go over that. But everything else is pretty much similar to the findings. But physically I can't do all these things, honestly, to be honest, especially by 5 p.m. tomorrow. So if anybody on the commission would like to help me with some of it in terms of like watching the video and identify who is who, for instance, that alone is almost an hour and a half.
It's just, it's not going to be optimal, but our choice is to not submit something now, and I think
By 5 o'clock tomorrow?
Yeah.
Is that the date?
That's what we are told, so.
Yeah, and I think we already crossed the bridge of submitting something that may be somewhat
You have a list of
disorganized
all
and
the
complete was
people- all
still
the people?
better.
And here's
Okay.
No, we have.
No, we have that.
Wait a minute. No, these are the people?
This was in that package.
Yeah. So this is helpful, right? But again, it doesn't say. It's just I have the names. I don't have a problem with the name. It's you're talking about the credentials.
Would a transcription be helpful?
No, Carlos has the tape. It's just not feasible
If
for
he-
him to
cannot
spend
do-
20 hours between now and 5 o'clock tomorrow doing this. It's just not feasible. Yeah. I don't know that it would work with the process.
No.
I think we'd probably better just when we circulate to the commission, and then if anybody has corrective type or detailed type comments, we'd give them to Carlos. But let's be realistic about what can be done tomorrow. I mean, does anybody have any feelings about approving the minutes yet versus
Yeah, there's.
waiting?
Do you have any?
Yeah, just to clarify, and I know this is a bit of an extraordinary case, but minutes are a summary of what occurs at a meeting. All the meetings are videotaped now, so there's a full record there. All the documents are submitted that were part of the packet are, online and part of the full record. So I think the idea is for the findings to be a summary of how the commission reasoned its decision based on the 5 standards at the last meeting, and then the minutes to be a summary of what occurred at that meeting, again, not to be a transcript there. So a compromise for folks that want it to be more exhaustive in the minutes as far as less action minutes. And again, our direction as a city is kind of to do action type minutes and spend our time on other processes because we do have these full videos available if someone wants to look and see everything. But sort of compromise, we could present draft minutes. Those often go to with council packets for other commissions because those minutes haven't been approved at times. So those draft minutes could go forward, and there would be time to, at future meeting, at the next meeting, to approve the full minutes at that point.
Okay. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. All right. So we won't for the minutes. All right. So I guess we need a motion to approve the findings.
So Mark, before that, there was a comment made about approving the video, or a comment about the video, or the video of our last meeting. Is there any language in there that we can state something about looking at the actual video from the hearing? In summary.
Yeah, I'm not following how it would be. I mean, the video exists and is available. I don't know that it.
Just language that, I don't know, just.
You mean a minutes, the action minutes based on the meeting that took place that was videoed? Is that what you mean?
That's not the way that I heard it. Yeah, reiterate your comment, please.
The comment was that given that you guys are doing this under pressure and under a self-imposed timeline, that we request that you could add into the findings that while the findings are a wonderful document and can be a wonderful document, given the limitations of your time, that they are no substitute for actually watching the commission's hearing on this. And it's simply just language that allows the city council to perhaps gives them a nudge in the direction of watching that hearing themselves so that they're seeing the full essence of what happened at that meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Beth.
No.
Okay. I don't know if anybody has, I mean, it doesn't sound like people have.
If I can make just one more suggestion, I think it would be really important, knowing what's on the line, that maybe the city council would be invited to walk through, maybe a city council member with each commissioner, and have them experience the house as you did that day.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think it's probably time to, I mean, is there anything else anybody on the commission feels strongly should be added to the report, or any language anybody would like to propose?
Sending Carlos one thing for the, I'm just sending you something.
You were sending me?
Okay.
It's just,
My email?
yeah,
Okay.
it was quick. It's just
I have some time tomorrow to help Carlos, but I'm not going to go through the video, no matter what.
Yeah, I mean, I just think we have to.
Okay.
I mean, I think that the report is.
2 stars, so I have no interest
Yeah.
in.
I mean, I think the report is
Okay.
as good as we're going to get in this time frame, and I think the essence of it's there, and the conclusions are there. Okay. Well, I mean, the motion should allow for kind of final review and minor comments tomorrow to be given to
I
Carlos.
just don't know. I mean, hearing some of the things, I mean, we have to fill in a little bit more on that section about what the people said.
Okay, no, that'd be great.
Probably the most
I think
critical.
it's pretty
part.
good,
Okay.
I have to say.
I'm not sure it's going to be the complete.
No.
Again, short of a transcript, is my understanding that we can't reflect every single thought or important statement that somebody thinks is important and maybe a person doing the minutes doesn't catch. I think that's
I think it's good.
No, but I
very
think
much
we
to us,
we
but-
have to identify them and at least establish who they were.
in order to identify them, you had to watch the 1 hour and a half or so, so that they go one by one every 2 minutes and they tell you who they are.
Well, a lot of them we already knew.
Yeah, okay.
If they know some of the people, I mean, you just gave us a list, but I think unfortunately
There's no title.
these
Yeah,
were
that's-
these 8 people. I think we already knew.
Okay.
So now you have to come up with the other 29.
All right. Well, if anybody on the commission has, any details to fill in tomorrow, that's fine.
See, we have those.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the findings? Elliot, why don't you make a motion?
Thanks.
since you-
No, Elliot isn't going to approve it. I guess I move that we accept. I'm not even sure what we're accepting anymore. Or that we approve the findings as amended at this meeting and as might be edited in terms of corrections, grammatical errors, etc., by tomorrow. I don't know if there's anything else. Actually, it's the findings. I should be more careful. The findings on the application of certificate for appropriateness for the demolition of the Harley Clark Mansion and Coach House at 2603 Sheridan Road as a result of the meeting of October 23rd, 2018, and as disapproved by the commission.
Okay, great.
At that meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Julie seconds. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
She's abstaining.
Okay, so I guess there's 4.
You weren't there.
She wasn't here.
Okay.
She wasn't there.
That's why.
Okay, and Robert also, I think, abstained.
Oh.
It's 5 to 2 abstentions.
Right.
Is that
5, 0, and 2
sufficient?
abstentions.
5,
Yes.
0.
You just-
Oh, we have a quorum.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Screw this up.
All right.
Don't forget also we have the October
Yeah, okay, so we
9th.
the October 9th minutes, did anybody have any comments on the October 9th minutes that were circulated?
I was not present at the meeting.
I wasn't either.
I move to approve the October 9th minutes.
Second?
I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't get in time to sign it, but I would like to object to the minutes.
Do you want, here, why don't you sign in?
The October 9th.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, okay. Just tell us who you are and thank you.
Craig Eiler. I live at 741 Sheridan, which is just behind 90 Kedzie. In your last meeting, you approved their fence, including a 6-foot wood fence all the way around. That is in violation of my easement, my visual easement. Carlos, or Mr. Ruiz, we sent you a letter, my wife did, in fact, and so hopefully you have that, and our attorney said that one of us should come here and voice an objection, and that's all I'm doing.
What was the objection to the minutes?
The objection is to, in the minutes, you approved, or whatever the term is, for their 6-foot wood, therefore not see-through fence on their side and backyard.
So it's an objection to the motion, not to the minutes themselves? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right,
Sorry.
thank you.
Is that perfect?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, did you complete your motion to approve the minute? Okay, does anybody want to second the motion to approve the minutes of October 9, who was here? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How many?
And
He wasn't here.
is it
October 9th?
Carl, Tim, 4 in favor, and any opposed? And then all abstaining?
So wait a minute, what, four in favor?
None opposed, 3 abstaining. Weren't here.
So passes 4-3.
Yes. Or 4-0.
4-0.
4-0.
And who's abstaining?
Julie, Elliot, and Mark, who were not in the city of Evanston.
Okay, Julie, okay, thank you.
Staff reports?
I'm sorry?
For October 23rd, we decided to defer to the next meeting.
I guess the only thing that I'd like to mention today is that we received the agreement between the Department of Natural Resources and the city to conduct a seminar through the group camp for historic preservation education. Staff will work to prepare the seminar for hopefully early spring 2019, and that's a grant that we received from the state.
It's like the one that we had, but then it didn't go forward.
This was, no, it just took a long time
Okay,
to get it
whatever.
through.
Great.
Because originally you thought it was going to happen last
Yeah.
year.
Um,
Highly recommended.
Was there any other business to present?
No, I don't have any other.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so tired right now. You're right. So there's two things I don't have the agenda for me, but there's two things I'd like to talk about. One would be the dates for the commission meeting in 2019, and the other one is the nomination of the preservation officers for 2019. I had sent an email to you as a whole to think about who we would like to nominate. The election will take place on December 11, and you can nominate someone until that time. So if you have any nominations, let us know now or before the meeting next December 11th.
So the nominations don't occur tonight, they occur...
They can occur tonight, but you have until the day of the election day. We are seeking for chair, vice chair, and secretary. And as you know, Diane Williams, her term will expire next year in May, but she ran as she was chair, or she's still the chair since 2015. So just want to let you know that she's not available today, but she indicated before accepting again this year that she will retire 2018. And the other one is the dates for 2019. There are two questions I have for the commission. One is if you would like to hold a meeting in August, and if we do that, we had to do it the first week or the first Tuesday in August. The direction is that we should have a meeting before the council meeting, so that would take us to the first Tuesday in August 2019. That's one question. And the other question is the meeting, the second week in October will fall on Yom Kippur holiday. So I want to know if you want to change either to the first week also in October.
Yes.
It's already next year?
I think we should have a meeting in August because because people are just held up, and then there's more in September, then we have to have 2 meetings, so I think we should keep a meeting in August.
So the meeting will be the first Tuesday in August rather than the second Tuesday in August.
Okay.
And the same thing will go with October.
Okay.
Okay? So I will change those dates, and hopefully we have a place to meet.
Why will it change in August? What is wrong?
Because of the...
City council meeting.
No, but why did he say?
The August, because they only have one council meeting in August, and the direction is that we should have a meeting, if we choose so, before that meeting. So
Yeah.
that would be the first Tuesday in August.
So you're saying it would be the first? or
Yes,
the-
the first.
So that would be the 6th.
Right.
Okay, great.
And then the October, can you check the date, if you don't mind? October, don't have it here. So you said August 6th, and this first Tuesday in October, would that be, I don't have my calendar.
No, that's...
First, October 1st.
The first, okay. All right.
Anything else?
Yes, I'd like to nominate some people right now.
Can we nominate Ken since he's not here?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm nominating. I'm nominating Ken to be chair, Mark to be vice chair, and actually, Mark, you did a great job tonight. Thank you so much. And I don't know, for secretary.
Yeah. I talked to Ken, and he has declined to become chair.
Mark, what do you think?
Would you like to?
Now's your opportunity.
No, I would do it, although I'd rather Ken do it first. Maybe we can talk him into it. I just think
he's got the twins thing. Mark, you were great.
No, I wasn't very good. But Ken would be outstanding at doing it if he could be induced.
He's interested, I think, to remain as vice chair, but not chair.
Would you?
No,
All right, well,
I mean,
you-
I would do it. I would prefer
Okay.
he would do it, but I would do it.
Elliot, you want to be secretary? Yes, Elliot's secretary.
What does Mark do as secretary, and then I'll find out.
Mark, what'd you do?
What have you been doing as secretary?
Sign motions and practice chairing one meeting, which I badly
Meeting a year?
needed.
Is that it? You get to do one meeting a year? That's fine.
Okay. So Mark chair, Ken vice chair, and Elliot secretary.
Okay, unless Ken will have second thoughts.
Quick.
Well, we don't vote on it till the next meeting.
I know, but
All
just
right.
keep that in mind before.
I'll email Ken and tell him how much better job he'd do, and he could.
You can like. I think he's got the twins.
Okay. Okay.
Ready?
We have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you for